Neri Zilber is a journalist and Middle East analyst. He is also an adjunct fellow at Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He joins me now live from Tel Aviv. Neri, good to see you. Good to have you here with us on TRT World. So there are either two things happening here. A, Netanyahu is so powerful that he cannot be challenged. B, the protests were not powerful enough.
Well, there's option C, which is that Netanyahu is really arguably the weakest prime minister in Israeli history, succumbing to the hard right, far right, and messianic front in his own coalition that he couldn't ostensibly hold off. And he really essentially caved at the last minute yesterday. There were compromise talks ongoing, and he ostensibly failed to convince his hardline allies to agree to any kind of softening of this bill. And also the protest movement, we have to remember, this has been going on now since January, and in late March, they actually were successful in stymieing the initial push by the Netanyahu coalition to pass a whole slew of bills as part of their overall judicial overhaul. So again, they won the battle in late March. Yesterday, Netanyahu and his forces won the battle, but the war is far from over.
So what do you think is going to happen next?
So Mustafa was correct. Now I think the action is shifting to a few different fronts. Number one, and perhaps most importantly, the Israeli military, the IDF, the reservists, probably 10,000, maybe more, had threatened to stop reporting for volunteer duty if this law was passed yesterday. The law was passed. We're looking whether they actually make good on that threat, and then by extension, what the impact will be on Israel's warfighting capabilities, whether Israel will still have a functioning reserve army and really a functioning air force in the coming days and weeks. So that's number one. Number two, the economy, the economic impact. We're already seeing sharp losses in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. The shekel, the currency here, is plummeting. And so follow-on shocks in the economy will have an impact on regular Israelis. And then third, the protest movement has vowed to continue to protest and to escalate, actually, their actions. So we'll see what they have in store. But really, the parliament here, the Knesset, is on break until mid-October. So in and of itself, the Netanyahu government can't pass any additional laws. And I imagine Netanyahu and his allies are hoping that everything kind of stabilizes somewhat. People get tired, go on vacation, and kind of forget about what happened yesterday. But I find that very hard to believe.
And Neri, the opposition has also pledged to file a petition to the Supreme Court. How likely is it for that to produce some sort of positive results for the opposition?
So that's also an additional front. This is already being appealed to the Supreme Court, the bill that was passed yesterday. It's unclear what the time frame is for the court to actually take up the petition, but it will definitely be happening perhaps in the coming weeks. Legal experts that I've spoken to over the past few weeks, they don't like to predict what the court will decide. But having said that, they're very cautious, if not pessimistic, with regard to the court actually striking down this bill because it has quasi-constitutional standing under the Israeli system. And it's important to note the Supreme Court has never struck down a quasi-constitutional law coming out of parliament. So this would be a first. In addition to everything else going on in Israel, this is unprecedented, and the Supreme Court taking up this appeal and deciding one way or the other will also be unprecedented.
Neri Zilber, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.